Hello, this is Devin from Week to Warrior coming at you live from Florida. So today I got a really good video for you guys. I'm going to be going over the 7 keys to proper programming. So y'all probably want to know, how do I make a program that's going to give me the results I want and it's designed by me? I mean, I keep getting these programs from other people. You can get programs from other people. They're good. They get the results. They get results sometimes. But take me, for instance, right now. I'm in Florida. I drove down to Florida for the last 2 days. I didn't bring any kettlebells. I didn't bring any equipment. Just wanted to do just the creativity of no equipment. What am I going to do? How am I going to make a program? So what I decided to do is make a body weight program for myself, schedule in some jiu-jitsu, but these are the principles I use to make my own programs. Whatever program it is, these are the fundamental principles. This is what you need to understand to have success with any program, regardless of your goals, regardless of your experience level, anything. You need to know these 7 things, or you will not get good results. So, first, without any further ado, proper goal setting. You need to know how to set goals. There's a male guy. I'm gonna wait. So you need to have proper goal setting. You need to know what your goals are when you're making the program. If you want to increase the number of push-ups that you're doing, then you probably shouldn't be trying to go to jiu-jitsu gyms. Like if your goal is to deadlift 500 pounds, submit Jimmy from accounting is not on that list. So you have to make sure that your program is always matched to your goals. You want to get better endurance? Make an endurance-based program. You want to get stronger? Make a strength-based program. You want to lose fat? Make a fat loss-based program. You want to get better cardio? Make a cardio-based program. You want to get better at jiu-jitsu? Make a jiu-jitsu-based program. Your program has to center around your goals. If your program does not center around your goals, you're not going to get the results. If you want to get nice and lean, and then you start powerlifting, it's cool. I mean, powerlifting is great, and they'll get you in shape, powerlifting shape, but maybe you don't want to be in powerlifting shape. So you need to know what your goal is. Second thing you need to understand is you need to know where you're at. If you are a highly trained professional athlete, you're going to approach things differently than if you're a complete beginner, or if you're out of shape, getting back in shape, you were in shape and then you get kind of out of shape. You have to know what shape you're in. You have to know what you can do with your body, what you can't do with your body. Can you handle push-ups? Some people can't do push-ups. Can you bench press? Some people can bench press, but other people lack the shoulder mobility to bench press. Some people lack the mobility to squat. Some people lack the strength to squat. You have to understand where you're at in order to build a program that will take you from where you are to where you need to be. So you need to know where you're at right now. Third thing is the 80-20 rule. You have to understand that 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your effort, and 20% of your results will come from 80% of your effort, essentially. Or 80% of the behaviors will give 20% of the results. 20% of the behaviors will give 80% of the results. So a great example of that is Pavel's program. Any of his programs, honestly. When he does Power to the People. Deadlifts and one-arm overhead press. It's just pure 80-20. He even says that the deadlift is the 80% and the one-arm overhead press is the 20%. So it's not even that... It's not even he's okay, this program is the 80%. It's one lift. He isolates it down to one lift. He's deadlifts. And then also one-arm overhead presses. So you want to get your program really, really, really focused. You want to have 2 or 3 skills, maybe even one skill that you're focusing on. Maybe that's running. You want to get better at running. So you make your program, the #1 goal is that you improve at running. So that means you're doing a lot of running technique work, running, just things to support running. Everything in your program will be to support running. If you want to increase your overhead press, everything in your program will be to support that. If you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, my goal currently, everything in my program is supporting getting better at jiu-jitsu. Everything. My program is secondary to training. I have to make sure that I am training more in the gym, the jiu-jitsu gym, than I am outside the gym, because otherwise I'm not a jiu-jitsu athlete. I'm a bodyweight fitness kettlebell athlete who happens to be interested in jiu-jitsu. No, I'm a jiu-jitsu athlete who trains with these tools. So you have to make sure that your training is your goal. You have to make sure 80% of your training is going to be very focused. You have to just really focus in. I mean, you don't even need to lift weights if you're a wrestler. You don't need to. It's very helpful and you should, but you don't need to. You need to wrestle. You need to learn wrestling technique. And then, let's say, can bring it back again to understanding where you're at. Let's say you have really good wrestling technique, but you're weak as shit. You need to improve your strength. You need to understand where you're at. So that's, to reiterate the 3 rules I've covered so far: proper goal setting, understand where you're at, 80-20 rule. 4th principle is recovery. It's often forgotten. You need to make sure you're recovering. If you don't schedule proper recovery time, then your workouts will actually be counterproductive because your body can't repair itself. Your brain can't make connections. You can't gain skills. You cannot progress. So you need to recover. Always schedule recovery time. You have to schedule it. You have to say, okay, these days this week, I'm going to rest. You have to say, these hours at night, I'm going to sleep. You have to say, these times when I'm not at the gym, I'm going to say no to those pickup games of basketball, potentially. I'm going to say no to that hike. I'm going to say no to potentially going and doing another workout because it's not going to help me, because I already have my program and then I have my recovery, and you need to stick to your recovery. Reiterate again. I'm going to reiterate after every rule. Proper goal setting, understanding where you're at, 80-20 in recovery. 5th rule, or 5th principle, progression. You need to have progression built into your program. If you're doing push-ups, you need to have a means by which you do more push-ups or harder push-ups. You need to move from normal push-ups to diamond push-ups to archer push-ups to one-arm push-ups. You need to have progression in your program, because the progression is what's going to bring you the strength gains. It's gains. It's all about the gains. You have to gain something, which means you have to go from a state of not having it to having it. And that means progress. You have to progress. So you have to build that into your program. You have to go from an easier program to a harder program, from less skill to more skill, less strength to more strength. Progression. Proper goal setting, understanding where you're at, 80-20, recovery, progression. 2 more points. The 6th key to understanding and creating a proper program is the end point. You have to understand when the program ends. So every program has like an implicit set of goals into the program. Let's say you're doing a program to increase your deadlift. At some point, you're going to hit the point of diminishing return for your deadlift. Like, your deadlift's going to stop going up, and it's going to plateau. So at that point, you have to adopt a different program. You have to focus on a different goal. You have to shift. Because you can't just keep doing the same program forever and expect to get results. Even, let's say, this applies to everything. Let's say you're drilling arm bars in jiu-jitsu. You have to make sure that there's some point where you're like, okay, my arm bar is good enough. Now I'm going to go on to some other part of my game. Because if you never switched, if you never said, oh, my arm bar is good enough, you just only drilled arm bars, I mean, you have a great arm bar, again, you'd hit the point of diminishing return, because in order to have an amazing armbar, you need to have an amazing front headlock, you need to have an amazing back attack, you need to have an amazing mount, you need to have amazing, like, all these other skills to facilitate your armbar. But you hit that point of diminishing return. You just fucking, like, it's like that dude who just, like, every day just goes and just tries to, like, deadlift his max. It's like, it's not going to work. You have to say, okay, now I'm going on to the next program. So every program has to have an end point built into it. Like, at what point are you, like, done? At what point did you do what you set out to do? And you move on to the next thing. Proper goal setting, understanding where you're at, 80-20, recovery, progression, end point. 7th and final principle is balance. You have to make sure your training is balanced. And this has to do with your athletic performance. You want to make sure your training is supporting your athletic performance in a balanced way. You also want to make sure that your body's balanced. Like, let's say when I'm doing push-ups, working my anterior chain. I also make sure that your back bridges. might do them a little different, but I do back bridges too. Push-ups, back bridges. Deadlifts, one-arm overhead press. Powerlifting, cardio, training, recovery, strength, mobility. You must balance these things. Even jiu-jitsu, skill in jiu-jitsu, athleticism, balance. Don't want to be all skill, but like a little weak body that just gets mauled. You don't want to be this huge jack guy who doesn't know how to defend a double leg and gets rear naked choked every fucking day. Balance. And it's just that's it. You got to make sure you have the proper goal. If you don't have the proper goal in mind, I mean, you're never going to get there. If you don't understand where you're at, you're going to train yourself like a professional athlete when you might not be of that level. You might train yourself like an amateur athlete when you're actually at the level of a professional athlete. You need to know where you're at. 80-20 principle. You want to pick one or two things for your training that are going to give you 80% of your results and focus almost entirely on them. Everything else is just the icing on the cake. Recovery. You need to make sure you're recovering from your training. That's how you gain skills, that's how you gain strength. It's the basis for everything. Progression. Your strength training program or any program you're doing must have progression built into it or you will not gain skill. Endpoint. You need to have an endpoint in your training or else you're never going to know when you're done with the program when it's time to go on to another program. Balance. You need to make sure your program is balanced in accord with your goals and your body's physiology. You do not want to end up being imbalanced. You don't want your right arm being crazy strong, your left arm not to be crazy weak. It pulls your body out of balance. You can get tons of joint issues from that, get shoulder impingements. Make sure your body is balanced. And that has been the 7 keys to proper programming. I hope you all have enjoyed this. I'll be tuning in a little bit with more great videos.